Warm greetings, everyone. On behalf of W4W Foundation, a think tank instituted as a citizens collective, we welcome you to another session of Wednesdays for Water. In fact, we are starting season 4 of the Wednesdays for Water, completing over 125 sessions, 127 to be precise. The conversation today is on gamifying water matters. At W4W Foundation, we strongly believe that water conversations are crucial for water conservation. And when we talk about games, it's a completely a different world altogether. But let me discuss first other aspects of Wednesdays for Water. The objective of Wednesdays for Water is to engage in conversation with water experts, grassroots practitioners, policymakers, and youth to explore the complex and intertwined issues associated with water and the possible solutions everybody is working towards. It has expanded since then to have more activities like Friday Waters and Monday Munching with Women for Water. Besides organizing water workshops, water walks and talks, seminars, special courses, and conference panel. To continue the water conversation, as I mentioned, for us it is the way towards water conservation. Do visit our website www.w4w.in for more details. My name is Mansee Bal Bhargava and I am the moderator and host for the session from W4W. In today's session on Gamifying Water Matters, we have Ballaji Kalluri and Yashwin Iddya as speakers and Varun V Nair as discussant. It has been shown that gamified applications can help users change their behavior to be conscious of environmental issues. In fact, any other matters, games have been an instrumental part of everyone's life, irrespective of age and region. Both Balaji and Yashwin have used games as crucial tools to make people understand the water matters. So we would like to hear from them. And before I really invite them to make their presentation, let me provide a short introduction of both. And I'm going to put the detailed introduction and biography in the chat box later on. Balaji Kalluri is an assistant professor in environmental studies at Flame University in Pune. He is a systems engineer and turned urban futurist, a seasoned professional and innovator and a passionate educator. He's a global citizen, having lived, worked, and traveled across 40 global cities, 11 nations, and 3 continents. And it's very interesting to find somebody alike me, and I'm quite excited about it. In the near 2 decades of his career. He has also been a seasoned multidisciplinary researcher with formal training and multiple postdocs in multiple thematic areas, including the future of buildings and cities, urban scale energy analysis, risk and innovation management, and so on and so forth. He's been very good in publications in high impact and peer-reviewed journals, and he has presented in many conference proceedings as most academicians do, and he's written book chapters, including seminal study of future of education and cyber physical systems. During his leisure time, he loves to immerse in various spiritual, social, and cultural voluntary activities, including teaching Vedas, among other aspects. So let me just introduce Yashwin also, so that we have a continuous presentation by both our speakers. Yashwin Iddya works towards making sustainability actionable. So very grounded person. He currently leads the fields of view, where we are going to hear from him how they are working on some games to bring change in people's lives and water situations. The fields of view, which builds tools such as games and simulations to improve public policy. As part of fields of view, he has built simulations in the domains of energy, water, housing, and urban poverty that enables users like community members, CSOs, and policymakers to engage with the complexity and trade-offs that are involved in it. Yashwin has a bachelor's in mechanical engineering from NIT Karnataka and a master's in sustainable resource management from Technical University of Munich, where he majored in environmental economics and policies. I see a lot of similarities to both of the guys, and it is really wonderful to have you both. I'm going to introduce our discussant later on, but for now, it's over to you, Balaji, to make your presentation and tell us what it is to be talking about gamifying water matters. Balaji, over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mansi. We have come a long way ever since we had, telephone conversations,
Yes.
since past several months to be, physically or rather digitally with everyone from different parts of the country, right? And yeah, so Thank you for also introducing me. I hope you can see my screen now.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
visible.
Okay.
Yeah, please put it in the slideshow. Yeah,
All right. I'll do that. I'll do that.
yeah.
So yeah, what do you see now?
Yes, perfect.
You can see the title
Yes,
deck slide. Okay,
yes.
okay, perfect. So thank you so much. So yeah, let's get into some details. I'm not going to discuss in depth. We have maybe 12 minutes or so, 12 to 15 minutes. So let's get into some what do you call overarching societal pathways or trends that are shaping how the societies are expected to change in future. So I would resort to a framework called global megatrends, right? And this is a framework developed by a think tanks based out of Copenhagen. It's called Copenhagen Institute of Future Studies. They have been in the think tank policy space, advising governments, nations, organizations, etc., using foresights as tools to guide society forward. And so in this particular global megatrend, so as first of all, let's understand what global megatrends means. So as the name suggests, we might have heard trends, trend analysis we might be doing, but global megatrends, as the name signifies, there are two keywords here. Megatrends are simply means that it has a substantially longer time horizon. It's something like internet, right? Internet boom has started in 2000, around 2000, and it has ever since revolutionized how people interact using digital network or communication networks over the web, right? Likewise, and since then it's been there for 20 plus years. Likewise, megatrends have a really substantial long time horizons, right? That's why it's called megatrend. And global because it doesn't really affect some portions of the world or geography. It has got its present felt globally, right? It's not only in certain regions of the world that these trends are going to be felt and experienced. So what are these and CFS has actually found and study through future studies that there are 15 significant global mega trends that are going to impact how the society is going to shape and unfold in future, right? And they have categorized or classified them into four broad thematic areas, as you can see from the chart. It's world, people and society, technology, science, and economy, right? And very quickly, in the interest of our discussion to water and gamifying, I would like to bring, or rather draw your attention to some trends here with for instance, what do you call it? Urbanization. And you can see that between people and society at the bottom of this slide, where how society and urbanization is driving today. For instance, India, we have about 36% of population of the country living in urban cities across the country, right? And it has been projected that by 2050 about 60% of our entire population is going to live in cities. Now what does this is one, not just the phenomenon of India, but globally many different nations are going to experience this. And by the end of the century, we are going to have two largest among the top 10 populous countries, populous cities. We are going to have two major mega cities in India by the end of this 21st century, and it is going to be Delhi and Bombay. Now, what does this mean as a trend, right? And how urbanization is going to impact cities, and how do we make our cities livable? And I often say that none of the cities in India feature in top 150 global livable cities in the world. Now, how do we steer this pathway forward, right? And that is something for us to think about. So what I'm trying to tell is this global megatrend of urbanization is going to have an impact on how cities are going to urban sprawl is going to impact how cities are going to grow, and how this in turn is going to impact or rather stress various systems that we urban systems, including mobility, housing, and other aspects of the city and the development pathways, and what kind of impacts and cascaded risks does this particular trend is going to have on the overall urban system, right? So that's number one, just as a food for thought. Number two is environmental change and sustainability. And yeah, so how are these, climate change? People often talk about climate change and sustainability. How are these going to impact, let's say, another trend in this case is health, right? And people who can afford to, fight and mitigate and adapt to climate change can stay, resilient against climatic, impacts. It can be extended heat waves or, prolonged winter or things like that, right? So on the other hand, people who cannot really afford, who are at the bottom of the pyramid, how can they be part of this, societal change because of climate change, right? So these are things that really are pressing how we supposed to do research, study, and guide policy making, and also driving the innovation in the society. So that is just food for thought to begin this entire conversation. Later in the end of this, I have developed a game called City Runner, which actually aims to bring into some of these cascaded complex futuristic ideas into the comprehension. So I'm going to talk about that, and also the motivation why I ventured, or rather resorted to games as mediums to communicate these complex problems, and how do we drive responsible innovation in the society, right? So we are going to go down that track really soon in this presentation. Now, I don't know how many of you have seen this video, but if I see most of them have seen, I will skip this. But if you think it is worth to again watch this video a couple of minutes, I would play this. Mansi, what do you think?
It depends on how you are framing your entire presentation. I leave it to you. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
We
let's
will
see.
share the link also. We will share the link also in the WhatsApp, in the chat box. Sorry.
Okay, I'm just going to skip. I see some problem in playing this, but yeah, let me try.
You're not hearing it, huh?
Are you not able to hear?
No, you have to share sound before you play the video.
Um,
Share sound on the
okay,
Zoom, huh?
okay, just a minute. Can you guide me? How do I share also the audio?
Okay. So if you look at share, upper, you will see
I
there are.
can see. See if you are.
Now here.
Okay.
You okay? You need a minute? Cool. Okay.
Please make it full screen. Full screen. Full screen.
Listen up, people. I know a thing or two about
If I make that, I think for some reason it doesn't play. So
Okay.
I would
No
rather,
problem. Please
in the
continue.
interest of
Please
time.
continue.
extinction. And let me tell you, and you'd kind of think this would be obvious, going extinct is a bad thing. And driving yourselves extinct? In 70 million years, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. At least we had an asteroid. What's your excuse? You're headed for a climate disaster, and yet every year governments spend hundreds of billions of public funds on fossil fuel subsidies. Imagine if we had spent hundreds of billions per year subsidizing giant meteors. That's what you're doing right now. Think of all the other things you could do with that money. Around the world, people are living in poverty. Don't you think helping them would make more sense than, I don't know, paying for the demise of your entire species? Let me be real for a second. You've got a huge opportunity right now. As you rebuild your economies and bounce back from this pandemic, this is humanity's big chance. So here's my wild idea. Don't choose extinction. Save your species before it's too late. It's time for you humans to stop making excuses and start making changes. Thank you.
Okay, so I find this really creative way of communicating how why climate change is serious. And when I was showing this to my 2-year-old daughter or 3-year-old daughter a couple of years back, and at the end of this, I don't know what she understood, but then at the end of this, she started clapping. Diners were speaking to her, and many people have started. Even before others started clapping. So what the idea I see similar way games are also compelling and rather creative ways to engage with your audience to communicate some of these complex problems and to get them engaged is how I see it. Now, okay, so this is an infographic which talks about why water is going to be a serious issue around the world, and this is directly from the IPCC report, Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, which talks about how different parts of the world are going to have a stress, because of water as a resource, and despite having several adaptation measures against fighting this water concerns and water challenges in different parts of these countries labeled A to E or F, right? I There is the studies also show document that there is significant amount of loss to people, property, crops, food security, and so on and so forth. For instance, take a particular, D, which is talking about India and largely Central or South Asia, where because of water, because of climatic impact, we are going to have impact on consequences such as landslides, and our monsoon patterns are going to shift. What does it mean? And people have been already taking measures as governments, to actually shift people and build channels, water sharing models, and so on and so forth have been adapted as measures to circumvent this, or rather to mitigate the impact that these climatic disasters can have on water. Now, on despite that, we see that there is significant amount of loss in livelihood, and the harvests fail, and there is property infrastructure being damaged. So that's just to give you an example, and also show the growing concerns that water will have, not just in certain regions of the world but globally, right? Now, what brought me to the story of water is something that I wanted to show. This is a personal. I am nowhere related to water. My training, as Mansi mentioned, was on building science and electronics, automation, energy efficiency, sustainability. But I returned to India, after living for about 8 years in 2021, and this is a picture of, or rather, a visual that I've captured of my 2.5 year old daughter. I was driving her in one of the neighborhoods in Chennai, and Chennai has been receiving floods for ever since I've seen last 35 years. Floods has not been a new thing to Chennai, the citizens of or residents of the Chennai. Now, the agony is of this. What does it tell as a story is the poor urban design. Despite facing it, what are we really doing about managing water and floods and this, despite doing a lot of climatic studies, people are informing, but why are we not able to do it? Now, this is what has touched me at my heart, that now that I've returned, and I'm going to my daughter has never seen this. This is the first visual of Chennai. We talk about Chennai so proudly, right, that I lived in. You can tell a lot of these stories, but what I saw is, can I now tell that I have no role to play in this, in mitigating or changing any of these scenes in the future to my daughter? Or can I tell to my daughter that yes, I am working on transforming this image, or this, or the scene in future? So was two choices that I was left with, and I took the later choice to tell that yes, I'm going to work on this, and I'm going to change to the best of my abilities, transform how cities are going to be managed with all these things that we are going to see, is what I personally took it. So that is just several questions that crossed my mind, which I just captured here at the slide. How do we therefore, what have we done really to mitigate or adapt or circumvent some of these problems related to flood in the last 30 years or so. Now, perhaps it is time for us to rather me and collectively some of us to think, strategize, and get involved, in mitigating these climatic disasters. So, what I started also to map, this is a thought that also struck me, that why floods and water and climate is a complex problem, and it is not just a certain agency's responsibility to actually work on this problem, but it is cascaded. For example, in the picture, I've tried to model it, very intuitively, looking at three different professions or disciplines, like climate science or climate scientists, urban designers, public health, and authority. So each of them cuts across each of these functionaries and agencies functionaries. Perhaps they have been looking at them in silos and taking actions that are adaptive or mitigative, and tackling and against building resiliency towards floods. But really, we need to look at it holistically to see and develop solutions to actually mitigate these risks. And this is what is required as a responsible action plan going forward, is how I see it. Now, so then I start looking at how can we do it, and this is just how do we reimagine or revision urban water bodies. Can we look at this as an opportunity to educate about water body? And there are tons of ideas that emerged just out of my mind while brainstorming, and I've just captured that. And how do we also involve people and civil society to be part of this whole transformation of water ecosystems? And how can we also think about making it as a political will or a strategy, that there are some political agents responsible take and adopt some of these lakes, and then transform the urban development, right? And there are some of these ideas that I've just wanted to capture here. And therefore, how do we rather combine strategy by mixing or blending education with participatory societal action and political will? Now, this is a typical, how stakeholder engagement workshops happen. And this is just one of those workshops that I was part of in 2021, where they were doing a master planning of the, to help a civil society with a lot of architects, urban planners, historians were looking at how we can make or give inputs towards the CMDS third master plan that was coming up post this floods. Okay, so changing gears. So how did I encounter or enter into the world of games? I was thinking deeply as an educator. How do I bring into comprehension some of these complex topics? And I saw, I was teaching computer science, in my as a faculty in computer science, and I started blending how can we make computer science education futuristic. Computer science has traditionally been building logics, algorithms, and so on and so forth. Can we build climate education into it, responsible thinking, ethical thinking, sustainable thinking into it? And I started looking at creative ways of engaging and and involving next generation professionals and youth to be part of this education which is required in 21st century. And that is how I started looking at using Lego. And for instance, that is on the picture on the left. And on the right, I have also, asked students to be really creative to come out with how do they blend, art, design, communication, etc., to come up with, creative ways of building algorithms. And in this case, one of the student teams in my computer science, introductory course have looked at how do they start involving, or rather involving and communicating the problems of water, sustainable water usages with their peers. So they started looking at what kind of behavioral changes that one can do in their hostel, and dorms. That it can be brushing the teeth, it can be taking showers, or doing laundry several times, and what is the impact that each and every individual's water usage can be. And they started to communicate it using a simple algorithm that they communicated, and then they started benchmarking what does it mean really to a typical human being, or a man or a woman in this case. Is a creative way, or I see that how can you bring in or communicate these sustainable behavioral action plans using computer science, or rather computer science course in this case, right? So that's just one of those ways that I got I started engaging with my students in the class, and I started using different games. Gradually, one of them happened to be this open source Go Goals game, which is there, developed by United Nations. It is there on the web. This is one of them, and later I started developing my own suite of games, and one of them here among four games that I've developed is a City Runner, which is what I told in the beginning of the game, my talk, where I wanted the objective of me gamifying, governance game in this case is how complex, urban governance is typically in India, where it involves a lot of different actors from political, power structure to, civil society, public bureaucrats, and also citizens, NGOs, so on and so forth. So it's really governing the city has to be looked at holistically, and we often in India blame bureaucrats and administrative political party to whatever we see as the outcomes of poor urban governance. It can be waste, it can be water, it can be the road works, or etc., right? And what I see is, and in this case, what we try to educate is how, why rather, urban governance is a really complex problem, and we wanted to make sure that quality of life in cities really depends on participatory governance, and how can you collectively, as six role plays in this game, people can together steer the quality of life of the city to make it really livable, is what I wanted to communicate by gamifying urban governance, right? And this is governed by a lot of other factors which we tried to mimic. And in this case particularly, we have gamified four aspects of urban challenges. We can take n number of challenges, but we have to be really finite when it comes to game. And we chose water as one of them, as urban problems, and urbanization, or rather, influx of people into the city, which is one of those megatrends we saw. So what and it is cascaded. What More people coming into the cities, we need to build more infrastructures, be it housing, be it roads, mobility networks, and be it water, energy, and your public health capacity should also be adequate to meet the. So we have chosen health, water, mobility, and people and housing needs, for instance, in this case. And the game will really throw, randomly different neighborhoods face some different urban challenges. Collectively, all the six actors in this game, or roles in this game, have to strategize and exercise their will, to be able to decide what are the short-term actions that they will take in order and exercise the budget that is available at hand, to be able to address some of these urban challenges, and also look at far long-term goals in terms of building infrastructures in the city, like, let's say, a huge tap that can meet the needs of 50 years of the city's water needs, for example, right? As some of those examples. So they need to really build these infrastructures, is what this game talks about. And in the process, you can lift the quality of life of the city gradually from 0 to 3, and then you win against the board in this case, or you also lose when you are unable to control the quality of life, when the problems manifold increases, right? So with that, I think I will stop here, but I will also invite, and I'm really looking forward to Ashwin, and fields of you have had a brief interaction in the past with a couple of his colleagues, and they are doing really cool work in terms of gamifying tons of urban problems, and taking it and engaging with a lot of different actors in the society. So thank you so much for paying attention, and I would pass, or rather invite, Ashwin to take over from here.
Thank you.
Sorry, I realized I was on mute. Thanks, Balaji, for the nice introduction, and thanks, Mansee, for setting the context of the work we do. So what I'll do is I'll quickly introduce the organization, and then take you through one of the projects where we basically, it's a project on water, and how we went about the whole process, and finally why games are required in this context, and how it is used or being used is what I'll talk about. I'll just quickly share my screen. Yeah, I'm assuming all of you can see my screen.
Yes, it is visible. Please go ahead.
So, hello everyone. So, I'm from Fields of View. So, we started this organization around 12 years back. The idea was to primarily improve the public policy processes. Now, one of the reason why we use tools like games and simulation is the problems in the public policy are categorized as wicked problems. These are different kinds of problems. I'll go into why the problems are wicked in the next slide. But given these are a different kind of problems, we need different kinds of methods, approaches to address that. And that will be the context of the talk today on why game simulations are in this particular problem itself. So if we look at the problem in the water itself, there are different perspectives to what are the problems in water. So I'll talk specifically about Bangalore because that's where I've worked mostly on. And I'll just talk about a couple of the newspaper articles that has been doing rounds over last 4 5 years. So I think one of the constant things that people keep comparing or talking about is that Bangalore is heading towards day zero. Now, day zero as a concept is primarily Bangalore is running out of water and something has to be done about it. Now, if you ask about why is Bangalore running out of water, there are different perspectives to that. One could be there is over exploitation of water. The population in the city is now way too much and hence there's more water needed. The other perspective is because of the rapid urbanization, the green cover has been declining. So what gets recharged in terms of the natural rainfall, that has been declining. So that basically reduces the water in your various reservoirs that the city can use. Or are some people using more water than other groups? Is the distribution of water equitable or not? Or are people not doing enough of the technological updates they can do in their housing in terms of rainwater harvesting? Also, I mean, on one side, we're talking about Bangalore running out of water. We are also constantly hearing about excess water as floods in different parts of Bangalore. A couple of years, there were multiple areas in Bangalore which got flooded. So what about that? Or what about the quality issues? So what we basically see is, I mean, these are just few of the headlines. I mean, if you speak to people, they have multiple different versions of what the problem is. So when we talk about wicked problems, one of the fundamental nature of the problem, given we live in a democratic society, is each of us have a very different perception of the problem. And we need to engage with those diversity itself because we are living in a democratic, pluralistic society itself. Now, given all of us view the problem itself as different, the solutions to it also will be different. Because, I mean, in public policy space, we end up from the frame that there is no right answers. There is always options and there are trade-offs for those options. So then, whenever you're talking about public policy problems, you need to understand what are the different perspectives, how do you bring it in the various approaches you bring in, and look at what are the trade-offs of this options, and let the society then decide which futures they would like to go towards. Now, given I talked about the wickedness of the problem itself, there are a few aspects to understand wickedness. So I'm just presenting a graph in terms of different ways in which you can understand different parameters required when you're trying to understand problems. So if you look at, say, water system itself, and using this quadrant as something as tangible, quantifiable, inquantifiable, or intangible, say water demand. How much water does a person need per day? Now, BIS has a standard of 135 liters per day. It is a tangible amount. You know what 135 liters look like. You can easily compare it with buckets. And it's also very easily quantifiable. So it will form on the top left quadrant. But also, I mean, if you look at, say, what is the patterns of water consumption between different groups. Now, the variation is so much and not everything can be quantifiable. Some days it could be a different pattern. Some other days it will be very different pattern. So it will be in the top right column. But also another important aspect, because I talked about it's about people's perception of the problem. There's also value systems associated with it. So what happens, like one of my aspirations could be, I need 24/7 water supply. Like I open the tap, that should be water. That is my aspiration towards water. Or the other aspiration could be, I don't want to walk long distance to collect water. Or I don't want the smell of the drain that is passing next to my house to be a problem. Now, these are inquantifiable problems. So when you look at this place and look at what kind of approaches help address this, so these are just a few of the approaches that are potentially used in a policy problem to solve different kinds of them. There are a lot of statistical models, but usually they can deal with problems primarily on the quantifiable and tangible zone of things. Or there is system and analysis where you can look at how different systems interact with each other, the nonlinear dynamics of the systems. But it again can't deal with intangible aspect of things. Whereas behavioral studies can look at quantifiable, but not necessarily unquantifiable intangible. So the idea is, I mean, now in public policy, the problem is in the whole quadrant. It's not in just one particular quadrant. Then are there methods suitable for that? And that's where ideally gaming simulations come in. Because they are, I mean, the ability of their methods to engage and model different aspects of the problem, it allows you to then engage the problem space in a holistic manner. So the idea is, hence we are using gaming simulation. And what we did in water specifically was this was back in 2019. Again, this was one of the years where Bangalore had a drought-like situation. It was slightly less worse than what we faced just a month ago. And the idea was, can we start talking about water security planning at a board level? Can we go to communities so the communities understand what is their water inflow, outflow? Are you being sustainable with the water use or not? But again, the pandemic hit soon, and then we realized, given a pandemic, we can't go down to the ground and do this exercise. We decided to create a capacity building tool, primarily to engage either students who are doing their masters or practitioners who are engaging in water security to primarily understand the complexity. What are the various aspects of the water problem? How are they interrelated? And what are the different aspects that you need to engage in? And all the different solutions that we talked about, can you test those solutions? So the idea is, can we build a model for that we can test? Okay, now somebody is saying, use this as a solution, use a new technology that solves the water or improve efficiency of water use. Can you bring that in and test that as an approach itself? So what we did is, I'll take you through the problem formulation phase to the problem, and then finally take you through what the tool looks like. So the first step is building a sort of a systems model. So what we basically did is draw a boundary of a model. We started with rainfall is your source of water, which basically recharges your different sources, which is then supplied through various supply mechanisms, and it's used by different category fuels, and the wastewater gets generated and wastewater treated. So this is a standard cycle of how the water goes. One of the things we did was built it as an open system, because in smaller scale, you won't get a full water cycle completed. So even in case of Bangalore, like Kaveri water is in cycle outside the system, and the circle never completes in Bangalore itself. So the idea then was to look at various parameters. So what we did is both quantitative as well as qualitative analysis to look at various parameters of the data that exists, and also look at people's need perception, whether water is being equitably distributed across different groups or not. And so two parts. One, we released a white paper to talk about, if we're talking about water security planning, do we have all the information we need to make decisions? So this is just visualization of what are the gaps in the water data itself, and this is specifically for Bangalore. We basically looked into 4 different parameters. One is drinking water, human well-being. The parameters for ecosystem sustainability, because water is not just for human needs, but also the ecosystem should be sustainable in itself. Climate change and water-related hazards, and finally, socioeconomic parameters. How do people itself flow in? And we primarily ask simple questions in terms of who is presently collecting the data. For planning, what should be the required granularity? Should it be at micro, meso, or macro level? Is it available at that granularity or not? Is it being periodically collected, or is it just one timestamp data that we have? And is it publicly available or not? So that idea is, there are enough people who are working on different aspects of, like Balaji's example, where he is interested in the water problem. Can he now engage with the data? Is the data available to even start making sense of what is out there? So this basically, for the Bangalore case, there is a huge gap in data itself to even start thinking about, is it sustainable or not? So then our idea for the game specifically was to talk about 2 things. One was to talk about the complexity, interconnections, what happens when urbanization happens, or what happens when climate change happens, how can you mitigate, adapt to it. The second was to talk about this data gaps itself. So what I'll do is, I'll quickly take you through the game. You can see my other screen. Wait, no, I need to stop sharing. Okay, is my other screen visible? Yes.
Yes.
So this is the game that we eventually built. It's called Hanigalu, which in Kannada stands for water droplet. So the idea is, this is built in a fictional city. Now we didn't want, while the data is from Bangalore, we wanted the use of, because the interconnection between water security can easily replace Bangalore's data, use any other city's data. The function still remains the same. So what in the game allows is, the metaphor in the game is, you have a group of researchers, the city corporation is facing a problem, and you need to suggest them what should be the solution for it. So what you start with is, you start with the story of the city. You basically go through what is the geography of the city, what is kind of climate, weather of the city, who lives in the city. So this is basically the population between lower income group, middle income group, higher income group. What is the population growth looking like in future? And what are the various supply mechanisms, which is source of water, the supply, and eventually who get it. Once you do that, you go more into the details of the water system itself, in terms of how much water exactly do you get from various sources, what are the different water supply, and there's also a text associated to talk about more nuances in terms of, like, one of the information we give here is non-revenue water. Now, what exactly is non-revenue water? How do you go about it? What are the components? This is something we discuss post the game. The demand supply gap itself, in terms of what is the actual demand and being supplied, and the social inequity of water among the three different groups that we talked about, the lower income group, middle group, and the higher income group. 135 being the BIS standard, and how much actually gets supplied at the level, and what does this look like in the absolute numbers, and the wastewater, and finally, what does the economics of this looks like? Because I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, in sustainability, we talk about three pillars: environment, economic, and the social aspect. So how do you then bring them all together? So once you do that is when the game part comes in. So the idea is there are different situations. Like this particular situation is vanishing lakes of Panipura. So similarly, we have modeled different situations, and this game allows you to add more scenarios as well, depending on what kind of learning objective you have. So there is, say, a rice industry as a scenario, or what is happening presently in Bangalore, drought predicted in Panipura. And also, based on the different studies, what are the different strategies being proposed? So one could be, you prescribe that 135 LPCD should be a minimum and follow to that. Or you increase more sources by including lake as a source of water. Because one of the things that people talk about is Bangalore is a city of lakes. And earlier we were sustainable because we are using lake. Now we don't use that much of it. Should we use that? So the idea is you can go to any of the scenario, and what the idea is in the games, there will be a group of 3 or 5 people playing together. They will discuss which strategy is better. So you also bring in different perspectives. They, as a player themselves, have based on either their reading, their socioeconomic background, or their understanding of the water system itself, and their assumption on what will change. Post that, we let them explore what actually happens if we take this choice. So let's say I choose lake as the water reserve. You can see now 5 years forward what happens. For each of this parameter, like right now, you actually have, if you use all the water in the lake, you run out of the water in the lake, and we also look at, is it sustainable? You are consuming 764% of groundwater, 824% of what was recharged in lakes. Is that even sustainable or not? And then look at all the other parameters similar to the state of the city, the socioeconomic divide on whether it has changed because of your strategy. And not all strategies will lead to all changes. So each strategies are being curated to have differential impact depending on what actually happens. And for a learning perspective, we have it as levels where different scenarios are played with increasing level of complexity. In first scenario, there will be only few parameters that change, whereas in the last thing, you actually engage with scenarios where multiple different parameters change simultaneously. So you go through all the slides, and post this is when we will have finally a debrief where basically they will present. I mean, usually will happen in a classroom setting, say where 30, 40 people are playing together in different groups. They'll present to each other on their assumptions and what they learned post that. Different groups will also share their input. Finally, the facilitator or the teacher comes in and talks about the learnings from those specific things on what are the interconnections. So, and the idea is not here to find the perfect solution. Idea is to learn about what are the different pathway strategies and how do you understand the trade-offs within that. So I think I'll stop here on that. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Yashwin. Thank you so much for a very crisp presentation on what's going on and how people can really engage into this game. That's wonderful to know. And because we are talking about how people can engage, I am in a right position to now invite our discussant to see how the younger generation is going to engage in the game and take up questions from Varun V Nair, who is going to represent the citizens from as young as a toddler to as senior as our post-retired senior citizens. So Varun V Nair is an experienced architect and urban planner working with Urban Management Center at Ahmedabad. He has worked in different areas like construction projects, city infrastructure, training and research. Over time, he has become more passionate about creating welcoming spaces, improving transportation and making cities better for children. And this is where I thought that he will be a good person to interact with all of you as representing, the inquisitiveness a child has. Varun is also curious about using blockchain technology to find new solutions for urban governance. These interests inspire him to find creative ways to improve people's lives and make cities more comfortable and efficient. These experiences have given him a wide range of skills learned through hands-on work in previous projects. He's also dedicated to using his expertise and creativity to help build sustainable cities and communities where everyone can thrive. So Varun, you heard both of the speakers present today. And first of all, I thank you for agreeing to take this difficult session as a discussant. And I'm really looking forward to you becoming the voice of citizens to understand what is there in the future when we talk about gamifying water matters. So this is going to be now Q&A between you and both the speakers. So feel free. How would you like to engage with questions, and who would you like to ask when, and things like that? It's all up to you. And meanwhile, if there are any points or comments in the chat box, you can also pick it up and make it easier for yourself. Over to you, Varun.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Yashwin. Thank you, Professor Balaji. It was a very insightful presentation. So, like, I'll come to the questions very. So, my questions are very simple. So, as a new person to water planning or water security planning, what are the major risks or the goals, set of actions? Like, if there are few risks, what are the specific goals that we should look into? Like, it can be flooding, like that we see in Chennai, and water scarcity. So, apart from all these, like, these are few examples that we keep reading in the newspapers. So, we know about. Other than that, what are the major risks that we are looking that might happen in the future? So this is anyone, sorry, like either Yashwin or Professor Balaji can answer. Yes.
Yashwin, do you want to go or?
Sure. I think, like I said, in terms of, I won't say what the goal should be, because I started the presentation saying there's no one right answer or one right approach that we need to take, but rather engage with the trade-offs. Now, risks, again, depending on which city you're talking about, could be very different, again, with the weather, climate, and all that. But I think one aspect is the risk that is happening because of climate change. The other is existing inequities within the city itself, which is not often talked about because we are now moving to the climate. So I would like to keep bringing focus back on those aspects as well. And if one question that is burning that I would like to ask is, what is sustainable for the city itself? Or what is the carrying capacity of a city to take that as an entry point, and then also bring in other layers of problems and go about in that way.
Okay. One more question, like this is for Professor Balaji. How can we gradually build a pipeline program depending on the level of children, either extra or integrated into the existing curriculum in schools? Are there any efforts taken by fields of view or kudos to integrate there something? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, I think I believe it is timely now with the new education policy, right? And we can, we are positioned now, appropriately with, fields of view in particular, maybe tens of years of experience now building simulation tools. And how can we, slice and dice them, in a way that children as young as primary school can also learn, get involved in this sustainable development pathways of the country or the city themselves as agents, and also maybe at secondary, upper secondary, high school, and so on and so forth, right? So this is an area where I see substantial interest is going to come, and opportunity is awaiting both academia and the society, and simulation companies, gaming companies. And very recently, in fact, few weeks back, Prime Minister Modi has also pointed out and spoken publicly about the need for gamers and gamification as tools that we should rather look for or resort to in order to engage youth and children, in order to to address some of these critical challenges that the society faces. So I think to if you want me to answer if there are any programs as such, but to my understanding, not really. It has penetrated as much as it is in across different schools. Maybe some Ivy schools like Cambridge or Ivy, they are using perhaps some of these tools, not necessarily the tools that specific to sustainability or climate change or water, but these are tools that we need to bring it into schools eventually at some time.
I think I can talk about fields of view. And one of the things that we are doing, I think we have worked a lot with policymaker side. One of the things that we wanted to do is also, like a question asked, how do we involve the younger students so that they to understand that? So presently in the area of sustainability, so primarily four topics: water, waste, biodiversity, and energy. For school children of 6 to 8 standard, we are building a set of games primarily to strengthen the understanding at a conceptual level itself on this complex. So it won't be a very different game. It won't include that high level of numbers, but from concept level on why water is needed, what about the balance between ecosystem needs, human needs, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So few months, so few like when I was doing my internship in Kila, so there we had again something like a game that we had made, but it was related to mobility. So one thing that I understood there was like it is easy for children to know what are the problems in mobility. So we understand it few, we found out few spots where the maximum there is a good footfall of children, and we told them what are the we asked them to just write down five best things, five bad things, and what they want in that five in that particular location. So they came up with segregated footpaths, segregated cycle lanes, they need a public toilet and all those kind of things. So like but in case of water, like I there are not much examples because these things they see it on daily basis. They travel to their friends home or this place, different places. They get to see how different places are, and so they can give an example. Oh, my space should look like this. What can we do for children to sensitize in these particular things? Because yeah, so this is
Okay.
yeah.
So I would like to add some of these ideas, right? So, for example, I've been ideating and incubating this idea for quite some time, talking to one of my friends. So, how can we bring into the comprehension, or rather, I am educating about observing systems in the wild as a technique, right? To bring in awareness and be cognizant about systems that you see. It can be water cycle, it can be many things, that we are surrounded by in our system. It can be home, it can be schools, it can be the streets that you walk, or bus that you can take, or any system, right? So how can we develop training materials or activities, can we design games and activities that engages, or rather stimulates to children, to think and be cognizant about water and systems that are supplying water, for example. So I was talking to someone in IIT Madras last week, and she says even at IIT, right, students, when they ask where does the water come to you, right, this invariably even kids in IIT say that it comes from my tap. So that is how much we are ignorant about what is the source of water, right? So therefore, we need to develop this cognizance in children as to what are these systems, how, where do this come, what is the where is it, where is the source, where is the what is the systemic systems through which it comes in, and what are the efficiencies, inefficiencies, and so on and so forth. So I was thinking about this idea of creating a water detective game, perhaps, right? So that we supply them with tools like activity sheets that they can go silently, where the children will be interested to go be a detective at their home, watch their parents and the family members silently as to how are they using water as a resource, right? Are there any faulty faucets or leaky taps, and why are we not paying attention to fixing them, for example, right? And maybe they can silently ask, or without even saying their parents, why are we not fixing it? It can be economy, it can be their apathy, it can be many things, right? But these are things that we needed to actually study in our society, and develop interventions or tools to be able to circumvent and build resilience into water security.
Yes. So as you were saying this, I also realized, I remember when I was in school, so there used to be prefects who used to check my uniform. So we can have water prefects in school where if there is some water wastage that is happening or something related to water, if there is water being misused. So they can go and at least tell the students not to do that, or inform higher officials, or in the school they can do that. Yes, yes. So that was a good insight. Then so, so one more thing for Yashwin. Have you tried any actionable water management social gaming events in urban housing areas, like for housing communities in Bangalore? Like you told, you are doing a ward level water security planning. So, is there any something related to ward level apart from this that Hanigalu game?
Yeah, so I mean, not at a ward level, at a slightly higher level, at a city level, we do have a simulation that was meant for. I mean, I think Balaji talked about the situation in Chennai, where again, similar to Bangalore, you have floods, droughts, depending on which area you're talking about. So we have a simulation that primarily engages different civil authorities within the Chennai metropolitan area to look at land use, water, and waste. their interconnection. And the idea is you're planning for 2040. So there the idea is it's for policymakers who are in these different departments, and they can take different decisions depending on whatever the department mandate is. What they can see is whether this plans align with all the other departments, or if there is zone where they are diverging. Now, for a city, because there are multiple different bodies running it simultaneously, it's very important they are coordinated. So in case there exists gap, what this tool does is let them know what the gap particularly is. With this specific tool, the idea is on awareness capacity building. So we have sessions around Bangalore to generate awareness, and then the debrief is structured particularly in terms of now what can be done at a say an apartment level, to a neighborhood level, and finally at a city level. Yeah.
Okay. So once again, there is a question. I think somebody has asked a question in the chat. So there's
Varun, it may be a good, go ahead. It may be a good
just
idea
one question
to,
from the chat I would like. So
yes.
sometimes challenges with water are not related to water and more towards governance. How do you think gaming simulations can support decision makers or influence decision making? Like there are many departments, especially in Orissa, if you see there are two departments, WATCO and PHU working together. So how can we bring that together so that it can be easy for citizens? Yes.
I mean, so the Chennai example, I mean, one of the idea was to break the siloization itself. Each department working in silos and how do they address it. But I mean, the idea is for each city, it will be very different. So one aspect is to map the city, who are the different stakeholders, and what are the gaps in the way they are functioning, if there are certain functions or the gaps in governance that you talked about. So I think I don't have a generic solution for that, but the idea is to start looking at each city's governance and then looking at gaps and how do we address that.
So I think most of the questions, that I had are summed up. So yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Varun. You have been a very good discussant to bring some, questions from a common citizen's point of view. And honestly speaking, the way the conversation was going on, it was very interesting to see how games can be very instrumental in not only, as Yashwin rightly mentioned, breaking the siloization of the whole water governance per se, how to bring a light situation of collaboration, which is not happening because departments are not talking to each other. But the other spectrum of game, which both our speakers, Yashwin and Balaji, have mentioned, is to bring a change right from the age where it matters, so let children be game makers, let youth be game makers. And I'm seeing Ajit sir also having his points of doing physical games. And I recall from my childhood as well, when games was very common as a physical game, and now we are living in a digital era. So that is why we are talking about digital games on this platform. But if you join us for Water Festival in the coming season, I'm sure we are going to have physical water games also, which we have tried to do in our previous water festivals. So I know quite a few good physical games, but here because we're talking about the digital time, the changing and behavior, what is the right age to change behavior of people? Who can be change makers? These are some of the things which can be really looked at very clearly from both the presentations of Yashwin and Balaji, where Balaji is more focusing on change makers from, toddler scale to, upscaling to even professionals and practitioners. And Yashwin, on the other hand, has really focused on taking a very critical issue, especially this big game which he shared, and looking at how polycentric governance can be addressed in a very lighter note, how to bring people together on one board and let it be a collaborative planning, and what we really call as water governance, because governance is, a very simile word to democracy: by the people, for the people, of the people. And I think these kind of games can break some of those, not only the differences between the institutions, but also the nexus which are built. And I would really request Yashwin to take up the water mafia of tankers and see how it can be gamified and ended in the society. Because if tankers can get water, there is water, and local authorities should be able to get water for all of us. But having said that, games are the present and the future of behavioral change. There is no denial on that. So maybe it's a good time if there is somebody who would like to unmute themselves and ask questions to and either three of them. I mean, we have a young representative from all of you, but also Balaji and Yashwin. We will definitely invite comments and questions from the participants right now. Anybody would like to
This is
unmute themselves
Madhuri
and
here.
Hi, Madhuri, go ahead. Please go ahead.
So my question is that in Bengaluru, people have learned many wrong things when it comes to water. As a behavioral scientist working in water, I think a lot of unlearning needs to happen. So my question to either Balaji or the other friend is whether they have any games to help children unlearn these things.
Classic question. I think Yashwin, because
Madhuri,
could you give an
go ahead,
example
Balaji.
of what this behavior? I'm curious to understand.
No, can you give some examples, Madhuri? Like, what are these mislearnings?
So there's a lot of wrong learnings that we have. For example, we all wash our porticos early in the morning, right? Which is a wrong message that we are giving to the children. We don't need to wash our porticos with buckets of water or in
fresh
a hose
water,
right? With fresh water particularly. So there's a lot of unlearning of that habit that needs to happen for children as well as adults. So is there any game that you would suggest that children learn and then they teach it to their parents also?
I think the water detective was already getting discussed. Maybe we have to make them detectives and just keep noticing what's going. But I will leave it to Balaji and Yashwin take it up. And maybe I add to what Madhuri is saying, what mishap or understanding we have or wrongdoings happening. A classic example is the way we are doing river fronts and lake fronts. It's a completely disaster and wrong thing. So, I mean, at one hand, we are talking about changing behavior at a toddler scale, and both of you have presented both the scales and ages. And on the other end, I'm talking about a macro situation. Something is wrong. We are making wrong policy decisions and making wrong projects. So maybe Balaji, you can take Madhuri's point, how to do that. And Yashwin, you can take my point. How can we stop making these river fronts and lake fronts and bring all the stakeholders and let them know that it is something wrong? So you have a challenge for future also through this, Yashwin.
Balaji, after you.
Yeah, so Madhuri, that's a really tricky question, to be honest. How do we unlearn, right? Yeah. So it also, in fact, I don't know whether directly the answer to this, but then it also reminds me of another thought. A friend of mine in New Zealand, she works with the Aboriginal communities there called Maori, right? And there is an emphasis in in the universities to educate about Maori, and while we are bringing in sustainable thinking there, how do you also consider their native tribe, right? And they are sensitive to a lot of these things. For example, it can be having doing a rangoli in the morning in front of your house. It can be the tradition that many Hindus follow, right? And for which we need to use some water, sprinkle it, clean this door front or the house front, and then do it. Now this has been a tradition. Now if you think that this has to be reimagined. We need to question the practices and rituals that we do customary, which has been doing in the light of climate change and water resource scarcity, etc. How do these people think? We don't know. So this crossed my mind, very similar. And she is also educating about water. Some things there in some communities are taboo to actually do, right? In fact, using water, what do you call gray water or reuse the water is considered taboo in some communities, right? And likewise, it can be something in also in India, right? And these are things that is sensitive to be addressed. But we need to somehow reimagine, reinvent, and and see how in reimagining, let's say, a sustainable transition of resources. So I don't know the answer, but I think I have given some thoughts as to how can we actually, re look at it.
Yeah, wonderful. I think real-time games are there forever, and I think we are not practicing them too much. I mean, traditional wisdom is part of now real-time game. I mean, if we want to get back to those things. And Yashwin, how do
Yeah.
you stop riverfront and lakefront?
So
Please think
I'll
about
just
it.
first, I think, agree with Balaji on the first answer. I mean, for I think different behavior use, there is social aspect that we need to consider in on how, why, what happens. And I think similar to the riverfront, I mean, there are also power issues or people with a particular mindset in different
Yes,
places of decision making. So I think for both, while there is only limited application of games in terms of it can tell you
yes,
what are the consequences you can do. But I think on
yes,
a larger change, it's also about I think strengthening the civic muscle or the
of
democracy, where
course.
people basically start asking these questions back, hold the people in this
Yeah,
position accountable to why are we choosing this over that, or why are our resources being spent in a way,
yes,
are there alternatives or not? I think what presently is limited in the discourse of various planning across is not proposing enough alternative. Yes, we know this is wrong,
yes.
but can we propose why don't we do this and that, and we can bring in those kind of nuances or trade-offs to talk about. I think that will enrich the democracy that we are in.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you reminded me of one of my courses when I was doing masters at IHS Erasmus University, and we had Professor Carlos Morales who used to give us land games.
Okay.
How one land use overpowers other land use, and what are the
Hmm.
socio-political, economic games that are played behind. And we were in groups, and everybody would like to, of course, maximize
Yeah.
their profits. And
Hmm.
that was a wonderful game. And I mean, I think we have to really think hard, and maybe Balaji and you and me sit hard and really work on how to work on stopping these water developments which are happening, because they are almost killing the lakes and the rivers. So maybe that's a discussion which we have to have outside this conversation. But if there is any other questions from participants or any comments or suggestions, Ajit sir, I see you are mentioning quite a lot about physical games, probably when you started your water journey. Would you like to add something before I give a closure to the session?
Yeah. One. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we hear you.
We actually had a lot of water related exercises with different levels of children. Younger
Yes,
ones, we had, of course, shifting, say, big barrel of water from one side to other side using mug. They have to run, so they have to run carefully. Uh, even running speed has to be there, and also making sure that water is not spilled. So that water on the other side also is quantified. How much water do you fill up? So this was one exercise. Second one was for seniors, something like your 10 and 12. I mean, there is say 11 and 12 plus two. We had plants, and we had plants, a group of plants with water. We group of plants with half water, group of plants with no water for say 5 days, and then they were observing. The students were observing the level of growth, and then feeling yes, these are very critical, so they got importance, and they were given a presentation to other say senior plus two say students. So this, and then of course Jal Tarang became a common feature, and any seven vessels they used to take, and Sarigama Padanisa, that they used to do that Jal Tarang, and there used to be a lot of competition also on that part. Anyway, these are
yeah,
the
yes.
few things, water related games, and they play activities. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much. Yeah, thanks, Ajit sir. And thank you, Varun and Balaji and Yashwin, for this wonderful session. It is really enlightening. And I am not embarrassed to say, actually, I wrote twice my postdoctoral proposal for Marie Curie, and it was all about how I can gamify water to bring a behavioral change among the youth and the children. And to my unfortunate situation, that I could not get through the scholarship, and I could never proceed further in that endeavor. But looking at you people, it is really a big relief, and I will say hopeful for me, that there are people who are already thinking about how to, make these complex issue and bring it forth to the society in a simple manner so that we make informed choices. We may not make the right choices, but we make more informed choices. So it feels really good for me that after 10 years, I see that games in water is very common. So probably when I was writing my postdoc proposal, I was a little bit ahead of time and I was too naive, not coming from a background where I can write a proposal to do water games. So I feel very contented today after this session. So I really thank all of you from the bottom of my heart to really come forward and discuss this matter. We will have more sessions, probably now also on physical games on water, to have some a nice moment and discuss it out. So thanks to all the participants also who are here in Zoom and on YouTube to make these water conversations meaningful for us, and also crossing these 250 sessions have been a wonderful journey for us, and we have started our season 4. We are going to go slow in our season 4 because we took a quite a long break after our water festival. So please do stay tuned to us through our social media accounts and website www.w4w.in for regular updates. But for next week, we have another Monday Munching and Musing with Women for Water to acknowledge and appreciate women water endeavors. And this May 28th, we have Minal Patole at 5 p.m. IST. We are always logging in at 5 p.m. IST. And the joining link is in the chat box, and also it is available in the YouTube. Next Wednesdays for Water session is on 22nd of May at 5 p.m. IST. Do join us for discussion on participatory groundwater management and governance. And you're going to hear people right from the ground. And we are really looking forward to the sessions coming. So more Wednesdays to come and more discussions to come on water. Games, no games, arts, serious discussions, films, thesis, books. We are all here to have water conversations towards water conservation. Thank you so much, all of you. Please take care of yourself and do stay tuned with us to continue these water conversations, because it is all about making water everybody's business. That's all we are trying to do in our various ways which we can. Thanks, all of you. Please take care.
Thank you so much, Mansee and Yashwin and everyone who joined us today. Wish you all a lovely evening. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care, all of you. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye, Balaji sir. Bye.